Business of Business podcast. I'm your host, Roy. Of course, we are the podcast that brings you a wide variety of topics from a diverse set of guests. And today we're lucky enough to have Elizabeth Pampalone back with us. She is an author, international speaker, podcaster, successful entrepreneur, and expert marketer with over 20 years of experience. Her innovative approach helps overwhelmed business owners and burn-out not-for-profit directors to achieve success and freedom through the power of absolute marketing. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you for returning. We had such a good conversation last time. Before I let her go, I made her promise to come back on. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me back.
So, we talked about a lot of things, and I think today we kind of want to talk about, to begin with anyway, podcasting as a part of your marketing strategy, which I think is good. That'll be a lively topic. You've been on plenty of shows, and of course, I think we're probably about in our, I don't know, by the time this one airs, probably in about our 90th or maybe getting close to 100. So I think we've both been around the block. We should be able to talk about this fairly easy.
Yeah. I love podcasting. I actually was a radio DJ when I was 12
Oh my
at a
gosh.
local station, and I did the weather and I did the music, and it was just a little local station where I grew up, and I loved it. And
How cool is
I
that?
was like, I want to do this every day. That was kind of my first, everyone wants to
Right.
be a doctor or a fireman or, whatever. I was
Right.
like, no, I want to be on the radio.
Yeah. It's not as prevalent today. I know we all listen to Sirius, and I've got my my couple that I like on there. But, back in the day growing up, like DJs, they were the thing. And then if you got to meet one out in the public, they used to come have album giveaways and stuff it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I when I met the ones that I knew from that station, at 12 years old, I was just floored. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are on the radio every day. And it was kind of like they were like celebrities, because that's just not something everyone can get to do or gets to
Right,
do. It's kind of
right.
like being on TV. And so I was really thrilled to meet them. And then they said, you know what, you call us all the time, you request songs all the time, you should just come in and
Nice.
do an afternoon, do a show. And we did that a couple of times. My sister and I did that. And since then, when podcasting became a thing, and it was very, very new, I jumped on the bandwagon and I got the equipment and I had like the editing software and I was doing that. But I found that I was just so busy with my business that I didn't have time to do all the editing and do all the things I wanted to and do it the way I wanted to.
Exactly.
And so I gave it up. It was backburnered, shelved until last year. And before the pandemic, actually, like January, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this again, and I'm going to do it totally differently. And that's the way I do everything, especially in marketing. I'm like, let's just take this idea, let's turn it on its head and do it completely differently. And I restarted my podcast in January, and we are 60 some episodes in. And also last year, as you mentioned, I was on 140 podcasts as a guest.
Wow. Yeah, I think about the old, and you're way too young to even, you need to go to the Decades channel and watch this if they ever have it, like WKRP in Cincinnati with the guy's name was Venus Flytrap, and of course in the booth he had his incense burning, the lights down, he had a gong, he had the whole vibe going on. Well, let's talk about podcasting as a marketing strategy. And one thing I was going to mention too, you said you called in and did that. It's a good lead in to this as well as the persistence. Marketing takes persistence. You can't market for a day or two, a week, even a month. I mean, it has to be such a long-term commitment, because we may get lucky and I may send out or post something or send something out or do something that generates a couple phone calls. But I think the reality is in our marketing, we want it to, kind of provide that pipeline support for us as we go, always having people in the hopper. And I think, something we've talked about a lot is what I like about podcasts is the trust, because there's two things that I feel like I hope to accomplish with my podcast is, number one, we introduce subjects to listeners that they may just not be aware of and be like, oh, that's brand new. Or we talk about something that they're like, we'll just use marketing. Maybe they're struggling marketing, but they hear you and you start to build that trust with the audience. And instead of me, this is a kind of outdated reference, but instead of me going down the yellow pages and bam, picking out some person, it's like, hey, you know what? I heard Elizabeth on this show and I like what she had to say. I like her demeanor. So, I really want to reach out to her. So, those are the kind of the goals of me as a show host. And so, I guess let's talk about how that plays in, from your perspective as the actual marketer.
Yeah. When I started to get on podcasts, I was just applying, right? Just throwing out those applications, seeing what stuck. And when I got on so many, that was my goal. I hit my goal of 100. I kind of slowed down there and I said, okay, how do I now narrow it down? I've been on a lot of good ones. I've been on a lot of bad ones. Now, how do I narrow that down and actually focus in on what those goals are, rather than just the goal being a number, right? And I was really, trying to find guests or guest slots and on shows where people like you were really vetting people a little further. And I think that comes down to, when you're marketing, you're not just doing it for a number. I did that as an experiment. I do crazy experiments, do as I say, not as I do. Right. And so, but when it comes to actually using this for clients and telling other people, hey, you can do this too. I realized that people need to have that goal in mind first before they even apply to anything, because sometimes it's just about awareness. And that's perfectly fine. This medium is so great for awareness or for education or for bringing a subject to light that may not be a very happy topic to, just throw around at a, networking meeting.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little more, like you want to really get into that nitty gritty. You want to get that hour-long conversation going so you can actually talk about something and have people understand what you're trying to say rather than just giving your 30 seconds and moving on.
Right.
And so this is a really great way to do that. It's also a one-to-many medium. So in marketing, there's a lot of one-to-many mediums, but this one is almost like one-to-one and one-to-many at the same time.
Right.
And with social media, you're getting a one-to-many, ratio there, but you're not getting a one-to-one ratio at all.
Yeah.
Right. It's just you putting stuff out there and you hope it works. Same thing with blogging. You're putting it out there. Somebody's going to find it at some point. Right.
Right. We hope.
Same thing with your website, with your brand, email marketing. It's all you pushing out, you giving. And with podcasting, when hosts are good hosts, which sometimes you get good ones, sometimes you get bad ones, but when you find the good ones, it's a one-to-one relationship as well.
Right.
And so now not only do we have a connection, and next time you hear of someone that's in that needs marketing or needs help, you might be like, oh yeah, let's talk to Elizabeth.
Right.
And so that's another thing that I think people are missing is that they might say, well, that person doesn't have very many downloads. But what you don't know is that they are actually the queen of networking in their city.
Right.
And they're doing, they see more people on a regular basis than you see in a month.
Right. Exactly.
And so that kind of thing, not writing someone off because they don't have very many, they have 10 downloads of their podcast or they've only done 3 shows. That means nothing to me in regards to, that's not my goal. My goal is to not only have a good one-to-one, but also have a good one-to-many.
Yeah.
But then that's also my responsibility to help share that with my audience and say, hey, I was on this podcast, go check it out. So now that helps them, they're receiving that reciprocal, help.
Right.
Not only are they letting me on their show and talk for free, which is fun, but they're also receiving help now from me and getting it to my audience. So now our audiences are intersecting.
Right.
And I think when you go to apply for these things, it can be very daunting because there are so many. I mean, there are, I would say, billions of podcasts at this point. I mean, there's so many of them.
Right.
Some people have multiple podcasts, which makes it the number incredible. And I have really found that if you have that goal in mind first, that's great. But there are some marketing pieces that you need to have in place before you even just start applying. Because when I started applying, I had all that marketing stuff in place.
Right.
That's what we do at Absolute Marketing. That's our job, so I was already ready to go with that. But what I found was that the more prepared I was, the better I got, like the easier it was to get on shows and the better response I got from hosts.
Right.
My pitch was done. So my pitch was written, ready to go. I had it copied and pasted. Sometimes I tweaked it if I needed to, for that specific show. But most of the time, the same pitch. I'm talking about the same thing. I'm going to the same types of shows. I'm going to all these marketing shows, all these business shows, branding shows, I'm going to talk about the same thing regardless.
Right.
So I had that ready. I had my headshot ready. I had my mini bio, the one you just read earlier.
Right.
Mini bio. I'm talking mini, like 2 sentences.
Right. Yeah.
And I have my links all ready to go. And I created an online one sheet to have all that ready so that when I send someone a pitch, I'm like, here's the online one sheet.
Yep.
You decide if you want me.
Yep.
And if that works, then I'll decide if I want you, and then we'll see if it, actually becomes a thing.
And that's a big deal to us. You've said a couple things that I'm going to try to go over. First off, is it's so helpful as the host to get the information, because what I do is, once we do this and publicize it, I put it up on my webpage, and I want to give you credit, number one, but I want to also, kind of hype you up a little bit. And so when at the time of publish, when I have to go digging around and people think, you can, I hear this, you can find it on the internet. Yeah, I know. But I would say I don't do a lot of editing. I've had to start because of this, like Zoom now announces we're recording and we're not recording. So I have to go in and cut. I've had to add a little bit more. But the reality is, even for me doing the little work, it can still take me up to 3 hours per episode to get it pushed out completely. And so, and we do have multiple shows. We have an aging show. And so if we start looking at, I publish at least 2, sometimes 3 a week. So it starts eating into your time. So thank you for that. It's such a blessing to have your page, because I can choose the long bio, short bio. You've got logos, headshots, you've got all this stuff. But the other thing I was going to say about the audience is, I think people, I don't know that they know how this works, because after when you start doing it, you think, oh, I'm going to go out to this new audience and get a lot of calls. That's not necessarily true. I think sometimes you resonate with the audience, but there can be, it takes some time to kind of make that happen. But what I look at, the real value of this is you get a free, marketing spot done for you that you can use. And that's where I always try to tell guests is, it's my responsibility to publicize the show and your episode when it comes out. But if you take that collateral and you use it in the right method, you will gain so much more from your own audience and from new prospects hitting your website than what I can probably ever provide for you.
I agree with that. I totally agree. And I think that just getting on the shows is just a part of it.
Right.
It's 1/3 getting
right.
there. The second third is to do the show,
yeah, right.
do it well. And then the third part of it is to actually, like you said, reuse that content.
Right.
I actually take every show that we do and I put it into a spreadsheet. And I have all the collateral that goes with it, the specific dates, the specific, who the host is, what the show name is, the logo for the show, the title of the show, the links to it, all that stuff I put in a spreadsheet, and I give it to one of the people on our team, Lucy, and she actually takes it and makes it a blog post.
Oh.
And then that goes out to our entire email list and onto our social.
Nice.
So it's definitely reused, and I don't always put it out the same time that, let's say you put yours out
right.
next week. I don't put mine out next week. I put mine out, which because of how many I've been on, it sometimes gets delayed.
Yeah.
Might be 3 months from now.
Right.
But that's okay, because you've pushed it out, you've gotten it out there, it's got a little legs.
Right.
And now as it starts to die down over those 3-6 months, whatever that time period is, I'm over here ready to pump it out again.
Right.
And bring more new people to it that have never seen it, never heard it. Oh, I forgot about that, whatever. And
right.
now they're seeing it again. So, or seeing it for the first time even. So I like to kind of stagger the risk, because one person, both of us doing it at the same time would be great. However, I like that staggered approach so that it kind of gets a resurgence later. And I've had people that have told me that when I posted my part of it, so they put it out there, they got their normal response, how many ever downloads, then I posted it later, 3-6
right.
months later, and they got this huge surge on that one episode that was old at that point, right?
Right.
And now they have this new resurgence of people who found their podcast
right.
and never heard from them before, and all that stuff. So And I've been the most popular episode on certain people's podcasts, which has been nice for me.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things that I want them to see that success as well. Because like you said, I might see a call or two from it, maybe not.
Right.
But I want them to also feel that success, that they did a show that was resonating with enough people, not only from their own audience, but from mine as well.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's like, we have to think about in marketing, not everybody in the world that needs marketing is searching for that today. I mean, this stuff happens over time. So it's like, having that little staggered approach, I think it helps both of us. And, we go back, we publish the I guess the fresh episode that week, our new release, we publish it through the week, and we also try to interject some older ones that we've had in there just to kind of keep them fresh, because just like this, I could put it out to my audience and then maybe nobody was really worrying about marketing that week, and so but when we push it back out again in a month or two, then it's like, oh yeah, well, we have a listener now that they were thinking they need to check into marketing. And then kind of talking about that too, as a host, the other thing I try to do is manage expectations. That we have had very good response, and we've got a lot of inventory built up, and we've got a lot of guests in the hopper at some point. And so there's probably a 2-month delay between taping and actually releasing. And so I really try to manage those people that are in a big hurry, because I know what's going to happen is once we tape, they're going to be on me to be, when's this coming out? How, because I've got a guy now that, and we've had some internet issues. And so I've got a stacked up list of about, 70 or 80 potential guests that we have got to get cycled through. And I've got one guy that's just like almost daily. When are we going to get to tape? When are we going to tape? And, I've had to say, look, we're going to get to it, but it concerns me, because I feel like he thinks that the minute we air this, that he's going to be flooded with phone calls, and that's typically just not the way it works. And so it's good just to manage those expectations.
So I did the 140, and this is just true numbers. I had one show that had a major hit. Other shows had little hits here and there, some connections, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
One show out of 140, major hit. By the way, I applied to over 500 podcasts, 400 to 500,
wow,
to get on the 140. So out of all of that, and all the time and all the effort, one show netted me about $15,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
It was I felt like it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and but the
however, it did take that long.
Right.
And it did take that much for that kind of thing to become a reality. And not only does it help with credibility, because then it's like, wow, she's been on a lot of episodes, and wow, she's done all these things, and it gives you that credibility with people who are looking for you already,
right,
to kind of help solidify those deals. But it does, if you're looking at it just as the only medium, it's not going to be the be all end all. But right, I do like it as we talked about at the beginning, part.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Part.
Right,
P-A-R-T, meaning of a whole.
Right.
It is one piece. And I usually like to use it as a part of like a 6-piece marketing strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll get back to those 6 steps. Let me just mark that down, 6 steps, so we don't forget to cover those. But the other great thing about this is it lasts forever. We record this and it lives forever on my website. We do the video, and so it lives over on YouTube, and then we cut, we'll cut this 40-minute show down to, we'll do at least 2 30-second snippets where we can highlight something that you said of interest during the show, and then we use those, because we don't, on social media, I don't like to blow a whole episode out. It's a little more difficult for people to, stop at that point. But if we can get their interest, they'll come back. So all of that stuff lives out there forever, and then that's not even counting what you do with it. And then, of course, it's yours to do with through the year, whatever, if you have a really good show that really highlights something that, you can push it out there multiple times.
Yep, I totally agree.
But, yeah, you just have to really, and I think the other thing to talk about a little bit is that, preparing your pitch, because there's broad categories. And one reason I like to, I'm kind of old school, and I've done this long enough that I like to have a 15-minute actual conversation prior to setting a taping date. Number one, make sure you're legit. I was telling you, I had a potential guest that was, when we were trying to do the 15-minute initial talk, she was, have to call her back and redirect. And I've actually had one on a show that did that. And so, I kind of watch for those cues. Are they engaged? Is it a good conversation? Because it's hard as a podcast host to say, Elizabeth, welcome to the show. So you're in marketing. Yep. and and for me, the worst thing there is dead air. And so I don't, I want to give you a chance to respond. I don't want to be stepping on top of you. But the minute there's a pause, it's like, okay, I feel like I need to jump in here and do something or say something. So these are all the clues that I try to pick up, when we talk initially. So, but I have had some, I've been on podcast as well. And, I've had some that they didn't give you anything. It's just show up at this time and this date, which even as a guest, I'm not that crazy about, because I want to know, where are we going with this? I don't want to I don't like to throw my guest any curveballs. I definitely don't want somebody to throw me one. But, I've had some that have been like a paper interview that, I don't know. And I'm old school, kind of set in my ways. I get that. But, I just feel like it's important for us to have a little bit of rapport, because, this is your second time on the show, which I totally appreciate that. But, like our first time when we came on, we were able to jump into a conversation because we had talked before, and I don't know, you just kind of get a feel for people. So it was very easy versus just firing up the tape recorder and being like, all right, let's see what happens now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that too. I think that's a good way to keep quality on the show really tight. And also to make sure that you're getting the right guests on that are going to set not only your agenda, they're going to fit your agenda, but that are also going to it's going to be beneficial for them. Because sometimes I've had people who've asked to be on my podcast. I do have guests occasionally on my podcast. It's only 2 minutes long, so it's done a little differently. But I have had guests on there, and I handpick them.
Right.
It's kind of an invite only kind of thing. I'm not being rude, but it is.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask to be on my podcast, and I just say I handpick them.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to get to know me, if you'd like to book a call with me, and you make that initiative and say, well, then let me get to know you. Let me see if you want to handpick me, that kind of thing. I would totally take someone up on that. But I have never had one person that has applied to be on my podcast, which, by the way, there is no application because I don't do that.
Right.
They've tried to apply. They just send me a cold email. And I'm just like, I handpick my guests.
Yeah.
Not interested unless you're interested in trying to make that happen, and get to know me better so that we can see if these agendas work together. Because sometimes it doesn't even make sense. They're just like, oh, marketing, great. Let me talk to you about SEO, ads, whatever. And I talk about those things on our podcast, but I talk about them in very specific ways. And I also don't want a guest to come on my show and contradict me.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Totally contradict me, and I have no way of responding, in that way. So anyway, I would love to, see more people worried about the quality, but also, this is a big project. You're not just doing this, like you said, it takes three plus hours to do 1 or 2 or whatever. This is not just something you just wake up and do and be like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. Takes me 10 minutes, big deal. Right. This is a big project. And I think some people, they use it to try and get fame. They use it to try and get whatever their agenda is. And it's not always about the reason it should be about, meaning it should be providing quality to people who are listening. And it's about the listener. It's not about us. It's not about us doing anything. I mean, we could be talking about how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but if that's what the audience wants, then it's going to be valuable. So, so I definitely think that, vetting the quality of the hosts and the guests and doing it at the same time and doing all that together is really important.
Yeah, and we can't discount the fame part. I was at Starbucks the other day and said, hey, I'm the host of a podcast. And they're like, great, you still owe me $7.50. So, yeah, I was going to say, we don't do this for the money or the fame or the fortune that comes with it. We do it because it's fun. And, I think when you were talking earlier about doing the one-on-one, I selfishly, I don't hide from the fact that I do these for me, because I love to learn. I mean, I love to learn all about all aspects of business. And the guest just, I mean, the audience is just gets to, they're get to hear what we talk about. But this is actually a one-on-one conversation that just gets recorded. But that's the other thing I think is what makes it interesting or makes it flow is I always ask my guest to speak from a point of passion. And I had some people like, well, what do your audience want? And I'm like, you know what? They don't know a lot of times what they want. They want to hear about sales and marketing and all that. But if we talk about a piece of that they may be like, I didn't even know about that. And so that's why I say speak from a point of passion, something that you're really on fire. And that the other part of that conversation is, marketing is a huge umbrella. And so trying to say, if you want to talk in general terms, I get that. But is there a specific thing that you like to focus on? Is there something that you may have just finished a job with a client that you're like, okay, I saw this, I've seen this 3 times in the last month, I need to get it out. So it gives you a chance to really speak from the heart. And I think that's what makes a good conversation. If I try to tell you, I need you to speak about this, to me, the conversation doesn't flow as good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I do want to give, before we end the show, because I know we're getting to that point, I can just tell. Before we do that, I do want to give everybody some takeaway things.
Yeah.
About being a guest, about, getting on the podcast, because I actually, because of my experience last year, at the beginning of this year, I acquired a company called the Pod Scout.
Okay.
And it is amazing. It is adorable. I love this little tiny company. It's so small, but I love it. And so I acquired it. It's part of our Absolute Marketing brand, but it's called the Pod Scout. And we now help other people to get on shows.
Okay, cool.
We vet the hosts for them. We find them the right people that are going to fit the agenda. So we do this basically matchmaking service for podcasting. And the thing that I like about it is that it's simple. We're not doing anything fancy. We're not doing anything you couldn't do on your own. But what we find is that people don't have time.
Right.
They don't have time to learn. They don't have time to really dive into this, because I spent an entire year last year learning all this and dealing with all this and figuring out all this process. And then when I found this company that was kind of doing the same thing, I was like, let's just put all of our expertise together and do this really big and really do it the right way.
Right.
And so this company is a podcast booking service, but one of the things that I have seen over and over and over is that when you want to get on podcasts, even if you want to be a speaker, just to be a speaker on a webinar or, speaking at virtual summits, whatever, having the one sheet is super important. And we talked about this, I think, before. When you have a one sheet, the PDFs are cute. You can make them look like whatever you want. That's adorable. But that doesn't mean that your host can always get the information out of the PDF that they need.
Exactly.
Some of them aren't formatted properly. So I like to build them in a web page. I like to have them on a hidden page on my website, and make sure that my bios are there, my logos are there. We talked about, links to social, all that stuff should be there, so that when you as the host go there, you're like, oh, everything is here. I don't have to go hunting for it.
Right.
And like you said too, that one sheet is important, but then that pitch, writing that perfect pitch. And I got the guys over at PodScout to actually add this as a service, because I'm like, people don't know how to write their own pitches. They don't want to brag on themselves.
Right.
We're a modest people most of the time. And so when people don't want to brag on themselves, they won't write a good pitch.
Right.
But we can brag on them.
Yeah.
And then they can just use it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we like to write pitches for people over at the PodScout and give you that bragging that you probably wouldn't write yourself, but we can do it for you. And
you'd be surprised how that comes across, in any form of life, really, not just the podcasting, but it's like, if you're telling me how great you are, I'm always like, ugh, you kind of have to take a breath and say, really, where is that? But then, if somebody else is bragging on you, and that's why, it's so important to get referrals, for your business, because I can tell you how awesome of a consultant I am and this and that. But if Joe Smith, my last client, is willing to tell you that, it makes a world of difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, like we talked about, this is a part of marketing. This is a piece that you can use to build credibility, to gain influence. And I think that, if you have a strong brand, if you know who you are and what you do and who you're sharing it with,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a great website where I can find all the information about you and what you do. If you have, and I can contact you, that's the most important thing.
Right.
If you have a good social media presence where you do have a little bit of an audience, it doesn't have to be 18,000 people. It could be 500 people, and you
Right.
could have just as much luck as someone who has 20,000 followers. So if you have a good social media presence where when you get these shows, take them and start pushing them out on that platform. Having a good blogging presence so that you're getting that SEO and you're getting more of an audience coming to you, so that they can enjoy the
Right.
shows that you've been on. And when someone searches for you after they hear you on a show, because they might not have heard the link or they might not have seen the page, they might just type your name in. That's going to help you as well, having
Yeah.
blogs and SEO out there. And then finally, your email marketing. If you don't have a way to get this to your past clients, people who you've already worked with, that you've been on a show, that you have this new information for them or a new
Yeah.
show for them to listen to, then that's going to basically just fall flat. And if you've got that audience ready to go and you've been building that email list over time, as you start to get those shows, you're going to have somewhere, an avenue to push them. And like you said, sometimes these pieces of collateral, these shows, can help you so much more with your current audience
Yes.
than they even do with someone else's audience that you're on the show for. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. So those 5 pieces plus podcasting,
Yeah.
just a match made in heaven.
Well, and the other thing is, I think you have to look at this whole show as you need to look at it in little pieces, because you can blow the whole show out and maybe people have the time right now to listen to it. But what we try to do, and what I always, what I would advise guests to do as well, is look at, because we put up a transcript. It's AI, so it's not always perfect, but it'll get you close enough that you can take a snippet of exactly what you've said on here that's valuable to your audience, and use it on your social media with the little cover that we send out. There's just so many ways to slice it up that you can really get a lot of mileage out of one podcast, especially
Yes,
because we have the
I
audio, video, and then
mhm.
the Canva covers. I don't know what you'd call that, but kind of the little thing that just says, hey, you were on this podcast and here's what we talked about.
Yeah, like the little social images. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's great. And like I said, if you're touching every single one of those 5 pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this podcast you've been on, and that podcast has a little bit for each one of these pieces, you're using it as a blog post and talking about being on the show and posting the link. You're using it to go out to your email marketing. You're using it on social. You have it located on your website, and you have, when you've been on the show, used your brand and talked about your business, not in a salesy way, but
Yeah.
in an
Yeah.
educational way.
Right.
Then you've basically covered all the bases in that, and now you have done all of your marketing basically in one show, because you've used that one show to help you market your business all
Right.
the way across the board. And when you spread everything out like that, and you're not just worried about, let me get on this show because that's going to make my phone ring, but you're
Right.
worried about all the 5 pieces that
Right.
we talked about, plus adding that podcast as that 6th piece, then you're going to see growth just regardless. You
Right.
you you have to, but you have to be consistent, right?
Yep.
We talked about that. You have to be
Yep.
consistent with it, but you have to also make sure that it's spread across the board. You're not just focusing on, this podcast had better make it, otherwise my phone won't ring, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's a lot of good advice. I appreciate you taking time again out of your day to be with us, and I'm going to ask you again, see if you've developed anything new. But what's a habit or tool, or what's something that you're using every day now that really adds a lot of value to personal, professional? And I know that you just got a new office, so that's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned this one last time, but I do have a pro tool kit, and I have all the tools that I use in there, and I do use them every day because I'm a tool fiend. I love tools.
Yeah.
But I do have a specific set, and I do kind of keep that set like really tight. So if I change something out, it changes on the website as well. So I want to make sure everybody knows exactly what I'm using. But one of the tools that's on there, and I believe there's a discount associated with it on the website, is called Drag. And it sounds very weird, right? Drag, what does that mean?
Yeah, right.
But it's actually a Gmail kind of like plugin in a way.
Okay.
And we use G Suite for our company. So we have all of our team on G Suite. And this is a plugin that goes into G Suite and it allows you to create a Trello-like board out of your emails. So when someone sends me an email, let's say, Roy, you send me like all the collateral pieces for this episode. I can then take that email without forwarding it, and I can drag it to my team members section, their little board that they have, and I can actually put a note to them on it. I can give them tasks on it, and I can even chat with them back and forth all on that email.
Wow.
Without ever leaving Google, and still have all the project management and everything that's there.
That's pretty awesome.
There's a ton of stuff that it does that I absolutely love. I have tried other tools to try and replace it with something else.
Yeah.
Have not found one. I've searched high and low, still have not found one. So if you are using Google and you need something where you are constantly forwarding emails and you're tired of that, definitely look at Drag, and it will help you to manage not only teams, but I've also noticed you can actually add anyone to this board. They don't have to be on G Suite team. They don't have to be in G Suite in general. They could just be another Gmail address.
Okay.
And they'll actually be able to access the boards as well. And it's basically like Gmail and Trello had a baby. So it's really, really helpful and really, really useful.
Okay, cool. I'll go check that out. Yeah, because that's, sometimes we, a myriad of tools we use for that. But, just being able to pull stuff over and write a little note, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we can chat back and forth on it, which I love. So you never see the chat. You never see anything. But as the person who sent the email.
Right.
But now that email came to my address. But someone else with a different address who's associated with my boards, they can actually see the whole email. They can read the replies. They can see the whole chain. They can actually interject themselves and reply to everyone in that chain as well.
Wow.
And then also them and I can have a separate conversation on the side that no one else sees when we're chatting back and forth. Maybe they have a question or, should I follow up on this or whatnot? Yeah. You can assign dates. You can assign color coding. There's just so much you can do with it, and I really, really like the tool.
I like that. I'll go check that out. All right. Well, thanks again. We certainly do appreciate it. Now, tell us a little bit before we go, not only about PodScout, but tell us a little bit about Absolute Marketing. Who do you like to work with? What can you do to help them? And, of course, how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Absolute Marketing is a marketing firm, and we create 1 year of marketing content in 5 days. So we do things really quickly. We create a brand in a day, a website in a day, 365 social media posts in a day.
Wow.
And also 12 months of blog posts in a day and 12 months of email marketing funnels in a day. So we're really working to get everything done so that you can actually go and run your business and you don't have to worry about all this stuff.
Nice.
And it does work for almost every single industry that we've worked with. I think, we haven't had one yet that we've run into that it hasn't worked for. Yeah. So if anybody wants to try and stump us, let me know. But with PodScout, we've added this as this extra pillar. So normally we do the 5 days and we're good to go. But we've decided that podcasting is what is good for some people in some industries. Yeah. If you're that type of person who wants to do that, some people are like, no, not me, not in front of the camera, not in front of on stage, not talking in front of people. And so we've decided that this is kind of like an add-on piece, and PodScout that's where you get that from. Is they're going to help you with that booking service. They're going to get you through that process. They also have something which I developed that they're using, which I love, is called Podcasts in a Day. And because I've been able to streamline the process to create my podcast and the tools that we use, they now help people to create a podcast in a day, and they will record episodes with you, walk you through the process of editing. And it's something that anybody can do. Literally anybody can learn. So we do that as a service as well. We also have the Perfect Pitch, which we write your pitch for you. And then of course we have the booking service where we book you on podcasts. So it's just a great system, and I'm so glad that I'm working with them now, and we're all kind of in the same office together, so it's really fun.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great addition, because I think, of course, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think it was a great tool for marketing, not only my services, but also, just delivering your information to my audience. It's I love it. It's a great platform.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, y'all reach out. Did you say the website?
It's getabsolutemarketing.com.
Yeah. Can't leave the most important part out.
Yeah, and it's thepodscout.com.
Okay, thepodscout.com and absolutemarketing.com.
Yeah, getabsolutemarketing.com.
Get Absolute Marketing. Okay, great. Y'all reach out, see how Elizabeth can help you. If you need some marketing help, she's got a great 5-day plan. If you want to start being a guest on some podcasts, she can help you out. Even if you want to get into podcasting, sounds like they can help you out. So go over and check it out. We certainly do appreciate you taking time out of your day. We appreciate our listeners taking a few minutes out of their day to listen as well. You can, of course, find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We're on all the major social media platforms. We're on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, please reach out. I'd be glad to add it. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your business.